When I saw the news that Fred Smith had passed away last week, it took me back to my first job, and my boss gave me a book on FedEx, and it was talking about literally the history of how Fred Smith came up with the idea of Federal Express. I look at the FedEx example as like a true innovator. I mean, to me, when I look at Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, Bezos, I mean, Jeff Bezos probably is the closest to really being an innovator with an idea that's totally out of the box. But if you read the FedEx story, literally down to, Fred Smith was at Yale, wrote a paper on having an overnight delivery business, got a C on that, still was convicted. He was going to the Memphis airport and tracking airplane flights. He had the idea of having the hub and spoke system where, Memphis was the center of everything. A lot of people thought that was a crazy idea. So, if you're sending something to Nashville, across the street somewhere else in Nashville, it would go to Memphis and then back to Nashville. And it seemed crazy. At the time, I was at a law firm, and I was a messenger delivering. I was also sending faxes, telefaxes, they called it, and telexes. And, the overnight delivery was a huge part of their business. So I just look at that as an example of, true innovation. And I think that's, no matter where AI is, I don't think there's probably a few people are thinking AI is going to do that better than humans even, but they're a long, long way from that. If that ever happens, I would argue it's never going to happen. All computers can do is take the inputs that you put in at this point and then calculate them and give you the best answer and do in different scenarios. But trying to do theories that have never been done before, I know that's what the artificial intelligence, that's what they're thinking, that's eventually going to become better than humans. But again, not in my lifetime, is my own opinion. To me, you want to hone your problem solving abilities and your imagination. And again, don't look at obstacles as a stopping point. It's an opportunity to overcome those. I don't know if this is doing it justice at all, but this is just unbelievable. One of the best scenic places I've ever been to. By the way, we're doing a hike in Lucerne, Switzerland today. This is Stanserhorn, I think. But it is amazing. I think we're 9,000 feet up or something like that. So back to the FedEx story. The first challenge was there a need? Of course there's a need back then to have, this before digital, tap paper documents or anything delivered overnight. The second thing was, well, how are we going to track that? So I put together a tracking system for it. Of course, how are you going to do your flight? It's a huge investment to buy airplanes, and there were government regulations back then on, how you could fly and flying cargo and different rules around that. So we had to lobby the government to get the laws changed around that. He had to also deal with the pilot shortage back then. And how do you train pilots and recruit pilots? And again, doing all this, he put all of his own money in behind it. He raised some other money as well, obviously, but he believed enough in it that he basically staked his future on it. And from the success of that, eventually there were some ups and downs, but became a billionaire. So if you get a chance, I'll put a link to a couple of FedEx books down below. But we can learn a lot from reading about true innovators like Fred Smith was. And it didn't just start when they first started the company. I mean, he was innovative then, but all throughout, FedEx for a long time has been one of the top 100 companies in the nation to work for. They treat their employees well. They believed in employee ownership. So kind of some of the things I've talked about in some other videos, giving employees investments in the stake of the company. That's going to go a long ways towards your success. and then also making changes over the years. I mean, they started off mainly delivering documents, and then expanded into shipping bigger packages. And then they purchased ground delivery and became that, and they've continued to adapt as the market has changed, and continue to grow for the most part over these years to be a solid stock performer. Yeah, this is quite amazing. What does that mean for us? What does it mean for you? How do you solve problems? When you are faced with an obstacle, do you feel like normally you can overcome that obstacle? And I think, again, it's just in previous videos, but if you're not good at that, then you got to surround yourself with people that are good at that are able to see opportunities, see different ways of accomplishing things, and really looking for solutions versus being halted by the obstacles of it. And I think it starts with knowing what kind of person you are and what your strengths are. Everybody has strengths, and what your weaknesses are. And then making sure that you're, unlike, I think a lot of people feel like, hone in on your strengths. But I think in the problem solving world, it's so important that if you're not good at it, then read books about it. Read examples. I'm reading the Elon Musk book right now, and it's just amazing whatever think of him. I mean, the obstacles he's overcome and the ways he's done it, thinking outside the box. There's one example in the Elon Musk book about how they had to manufacture a certain number of cars in their line in California. There's no way they could manufacture, I think it was 5,000 a week or something like that. And so he really had no options because there was no way to get the right permits to open another factory somewhere else. And so we had this big parking lot, and he realized that, why don't we just set up a factory line, right, a production line right here in the parking lot. And so, he did that. He found a assembly line, some contraption that they put out there, put tents over it. The parking lot was slanted in such a way that it was moving too slowly, so they had to jack up part of the production line so that it would move faster, so that it would be at the right rate. Again, he's just continually coming up with ideas, but several ideas that he's come up with, the electric car, for instance, he ran across somebody who had an electric car, and then it was just a rudimentary, no roof, no doors, just a fast electric car prototype. And then he envisioned how he could make that into what Tesla is today. Same thing on the production line. He saw that somewhere else, or somebody else mentioned that to him, and he just recognized it from his network or from what he had seen. But then he had to solve a lot of smaller problems over and above that. So certainly by reading, by being around other people, surrounding yourself with people that can overcome areas where you're weak is the way. Now for me, for instance, I worked at a law firm for 4 years in school, wanted to be a lawyer, worked at a big corporate law firm, and kind of learned for different reasons I didn't want to do that. But now in my business, I see contracts all the time and I absolutely hate it's just a tedious process of looking at contracts. So in my case, I mean, what am I going to do? I can either just make somehow else overcome that, or hire people that are good at details and good at contracts, and that's what I did. And for those that are wondering, I'm on a 2-week vacation. I started off in Como, Italy for a couple of days, came to Switzerland, and then this afternoon we're going to get on a boat in Basel, Switzerland, and we're going to cruise up the Rhine River. So I'll do some more videos and hopefully get some more scenery like this. But take a look at Fred Smith's history, his legacy. He was one of the most innovative people we've had, I think, in my lifetime. And I think there's a lot to be learned from what he accomplished and his legacy. So if you can follow people like that, learn from them, you will finish well.